And it's really nice to be here and to also be here with my friend Diana. We had such a lovely time on the retreat last month, and I'm happy to see at least four people here who were on that, maybe more. Hello, as well as a few others that I know, and some of you that we don't know. So that's great also. And I wondered if, just to create a little sense of community and where we're coming from, if people would like to write in the chat where they are from so that we have a sense of the breadth of the community that we have for this hour. Yeah, oh, I think most are going to be Southern California area, but I know a couple of you are not. There we go. Missouri, South Carolina, see, Albuquerque. Okay. Germany. Okay. That's maybe the winner. So we have a lot. Welcome to our wide ranging. And Diana, anything else you want to say as a welcome before we launch in?
Oh, I just want to say how thrilled I am to be here and to be teaching with you, Kim, and to be connected with BBRC. It was so lovely when we were just there, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, great. Well, I don't know if this is the usual way, but we're gonna actually have our little Dharmet first, our little Dharma talk first, and then we're gonna have a chance to meditate on what we've talked about. And so we'll apply what we've learned. So if this is literally a lunchtime mindfulness for you and you were planning to eat your lunch during this hour, now's the moment because we're going to meditate later. So um, let me see. So we're going to talk today about water. How about that? Water similes, which are found throughout the Pali Canon. Clearly, the Buddha uh, took this as a very evocative image in his teachings. He found many ways that water was related to what he was trying to convey for us. And it makes sense in that everybody knows about water, right? And water is life. So there's an immediate connection for people. But in addition, there's some nuance to these images. Just like water itself can be both destructive or life-giving. It can be powerful or it can be gentle. These similes represent different aspects of the Dharma, and we need to pay some attention as we encounter water similes to understand what they're referring to and how we can use them in our practice. So the aim in the next few minutes is to go through some of these water similes and explain some general areas that they relate to, and maybe also almost a progression. So I want to start with water as a flood, the flood analogy. And this, we understand that water is dangerous when it's out of control. This was a real thing in ancient India and not to mention modern America, right? So there are teachings, here they are from 2,500 years ago, that make this an analogy that says, as a mighty flood sweeps away a sleeping village, so death or misfortune sweeps away people who are caught up in sense pleasures or in grasping at aspects of life. So it has to do with not paying attention, essentially, this first flood image. And so the floods here are representing the Pali word is oga, and I guess classically the floods are sensual desire becoming ignorance and views, but those are a little subtle. So we might just say greed, hatred, and delusion, the kind of main problems in Buddhism. And we know that the mind can become overwhelmed by feelings like that. We can become overwhelmed with anger when it rushes up into us, and then we maybe say something that we didn't intend to say, or maybe we did intend it, but we didn't want to at some level. And so there's a way in which the mind is this flood, the difficulties in the mind, the challenges of the mind, the ways that it's unwholesome. And so how do we deal with this? Then the flood becomes something that we have to deal with, these challenges in the mind. And the instruction is to turn toward this, not to try to avoid the challenges that the mind puts up with us for us. In fact, avoidance isn't really an option in a human life because here we are. We have this mind and we live in the world that triggers us in certain ways, triggers greed, envy, hatred, fear. So instead, what we do is we take this analogy then, we can build a raft to cross this flood. And there are some lovely sutta quotes about this also. We won't go through all of them, but one of the nice ones that we in fact used on the retreat was a person would see a large deluge whose near shore was dubious and perilous, while the far shore was a sanctuary free of peril. But there's no ferry boat or bridge for going to the far shore. And so the person thinks, why don't I gather grass and sticks and branches and leaves and make a raft? And riding the raft, paddling with my hands and feet, I can safely reach the far shore. So hope is offered that we can build something for ourselves in some way out of natural materials that will allow us to cross this flood and find a way to peace, to ease, to not being overwhelmed by the difficulties of our mind or the difficulties of life that life throws at us. Everything from the challenges of our job and our family and our livelihood to the challenges of aging, illness, and death that we don't get to get a vacation from. So, so this water is something that is seen that can be tamed. And the Buddha says in a different conversation that there are we have to be skillful in crossing the flood by not halting and by not straining. We can get ourselves across this flood, right effort, not pushing hard, and we get swept away, but also not standing still, not just stopping, and then we would sink or drown. So we have this overall notion of balance. And then there can be, once we have this notion then that the water is tameable or workable in a sense, we can start to practice. We have our practice then. And there's a wonderful Dhammapada verse where water is now likened to the simple moment by moment practice that we do. The Buddha says, think not lightly of goodness, saying, it will not come back to me. The jug is filled with water, falling drop by drop. The attentive one is filled with goodness, piled up bit by bit. So this is a new image that starts to show the power of water. Over time, it adds up. We know that even a small channel of water can cut a deep crevice in rock over time. It can become a deep, deep riverbed. Anyone who's seen the Grand Canyon knows the power of water to overcome even large things that seem immobile like rock. So we can interrupt this unwholesome flood by accumulating wholesome goodness. So we suddenly have we have this switch from water as just these unwholesome, overwhelming things to water as little drops of goodness that we insert into our life. We start to have a turn. Oh, the mind is not just our enemy that we have to deal with and rein in and get under control and purify. The mind helps us in our process when we turn it toward good, when we open to the goodness of the mind that's possible through practice. And then we start to see the water as a stream. So the water in a stream is flowing inevitably to the ocean. That's where it's going once it's headed downhill. And we have this beautiful image in a sutta that's about the path and the naturalness of the path, where the Buddha says, just as when rain pours down in thick droplets on a mountaintop, the water flows down along the slope and fills the clefts, the gullies, and the creeks. These being full, fill up the pools. These being full, fill up the lakes. These being full, fill up the streams and then the rivers. And these being full, fill up the great ocean. And so too, he gives a sequence that begins with suffering, actually, and then comes faith and gladness and beautiful qualities of mind like tranquility and gathering of the mind, and then clear seeing, and then understanding what we're seeing and letting go. And Nibbana is the ocean, freedom is the ocean. So we have this amazing potential of wholesome happiness and calm and joy. So the mind, when it's fortified with goodness, we just keep dripping in these drops. Pretty soon a stream forms and it flows all the way to the ocean of awakening. The mind is an ally in this process. It's not just something to cross over or deal with. So I'll leave you with a beautiful one more sutta, since I'm just into the quotes these days, which is a time when the Buddha was feeling kind of reflective, and he gave this interesting analogy uh, for a well um, that has water everywhere. He says, actually, what use is there for a well if there is water everywhere? When craving's root is severed, what should one go about seeking? So there's a way that we're never without nourishment, we're never thirsty. Once we've cut the root of craving, there's water everywhere. Everywhere we go can be a place of freedom. So we discover this unconditioned happiness and peace that is with us at all times, and it's accumulated drop by drop. So we have some nuance and some beauty and breadth in these water similes. And one of the best ways to tap into this, another almost water image tapping into, right, is to feel them in the body. So with that, I'll turn it over to Diana for an opportunity for us to meditate. And then afterwards, we'll discuss your thoughts on these quotes or on your experience in the meditation. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kim. I'm just touched by, maybe I'll just say briefly, of course, that Buddha in the time of ancient India was near the Ganges, and this like flooding was a regular event. This is something that happened. So all these like analogies and similes and metaphors, these are like born out of real experience rather than just being some conceptual thing. I don't know, I feel touched by this, especially the news of the flooding that's been happening here. This connection, like this is humans have been working with this for thousands of years, maybe old times. So to start this meditation, if you haven't already, let's take a meditation posture, a posture that has some uprightness as well as some ease. So it's exhibiting your intention to meditate, but without being too stiff or tight. I wish I could think of a good water simile to enter here about how to have some uprightness and some ease. And bring your attention to the experience of your sitting surface, feeling the pressure against the body, whether you're sitting on a chair, cushion, feeling the pressure against the back, the back side, the back of the legs, and the feet. Feeling into being grounded and connected and supported. to help us feel embodied and present. Bring in some awareness to the sensations in the face, the eyes, the jaw. Sometimes we hold tension there. I'm not trying to make that tension go away if there is any. We're just noticing. The shoulders, letting them be away from the ears. And the chest. Is there a way that there can be a really small movement that opens up the chest? Very small, very small. So often we are armoring ourselves. What would it be like to have just a little bit more space in the chest area? In the belly. Letting the belly soften. And then resting attention on the sensations of breathing. Feeling the movements that the body does as it breathes. What is the experience of having an inhale? Maybe without words, just the experience of inhaling. What are the sensations associated with exhaling? Can you notice the transitions between inhales and exhales? And when the mind wanders, as it's apt to do, we just very simply, gently begin again with the sensations of breathing. We'll stay here just for a little bit longer, just hanging out with the sensations of breathing. It's not so uncommon. Perhaps it's even common that when we sit down to meditate, we notice the mind is moving fast, hard to control. Maybe there's this overwhelmed or swept along feeling, whatever the mind is doing. Maybe something, thoughts like, I'm not doing this right, some judgment, or wasted so much time today. Maybe we have a little regret. There's this momentum. Maybe ideas of this moment would be better if only it were different. Is this way we can feel pushed around. And this way we could say it's like the flood that Kim was speaking about. This barrier, as well as this sense of getting pushed around. And as Kim mentioned, we can build a raft to cross over to the other side. And one way we build this raft is just simply to notice. With care and respect for our experience, to just notice, oh, this is regret. Sometimes just using that simple note and without regretting the regret. This is just regret. I've already wasted so much time. I should have done this yesterday, or whatever it might be. Or maybe this is avoidance. I'm getting lost in fantasy, imagination, or memories. I can sense there's a sense of avoidance. Can we just note it without avoiding the avoidance? As best you can you just note the experience, what the mind is doing, this, maybe the category or the type of thinking that feels like a flood, a torrent. Just one mental event at a time, as best we can, with curiosity and care. Oh, here's planning. And after the note, and begin again with the sensations of breathing, the bodily experience of breathing. Each moment of mindfulness, noticing, is building the raft. Each moment of mindfulness is building a raft. Doesn't matter what the object of the mindfulness is. It can be the sensations of breathing. It can be the noticing the category of thought streams that are feeling pushy. It can be the sensations against the body with the sitting surface. In this way, sometimes the thoughts can feel like a flood pushing us around, a lot of momentum, unhelpful, a barrier. But at the same time, we're able to use the mind as a support for our practice, as a support for just creating steadiness and stability by being mindful. Sometimes the mind is more like a stream, as Kim mentioned, flowing, supportive, nourishing. It can be an ally for us to meet whatever difficulties are arising. This ability to return again and again to the present moment is this beautiful, amazing quality. the mind has. This capacity for awareness, capacity for insight, capacity for care and love. So the mind can be an ally. Maybe there's some gratitude for these capacities. And with letting go of the needing to fix or change or manage the mind or its experience. Can we notice the knowing of knowing, not the contents of the thoughts, just the knowing of the knowing, awareness of the awareness, this amazing capacity the mind has. It can feel like a flood, and also just simply be a simply nourishing stream. Thank you. Thank you. So I would like to open it up to see if there's some comments or questions or things you'd like to share about how that experience was. This notion of going from flood to stream and how the mind is actually both.
Is that a hand, Emmy?
It is. Thank you. Um, I noticed this when you were talking, Diana, about how the mind can be there, just not as the force of the flood of what you're addressing, the negative or whatever, but a support, because I'm just now starting to work with that. And what a sense of relief to be experiencing this flood of just all these formations and conditioning, and to know that the support can be there and I can be aware of that at the same time, and know that drop by drop, as hard as this is, if my bucket's not leaking. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Emmy.
Rose?
Hi.
Hi.
It's great to see you guys again. I just wanted to thank you, Kim. I might not remember exactly how you said it, but you reminded me of the story when you're crossing the flood, that both rushing and standing still can be detriments, and just to keep going. Because my practice has been really great since the retreat, and I'm very grateful for that. But I did some traveling, and that always makes it a little harder. So that idea to just keep going, keep at it again. Don't let the difficulty of ruining the rhythm mean I stop too long and start to drown, just to keep the steps going. So thank you. That was very timely.
Beautiful. Thank you. Matthew.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for the practice. I as I was sitting, I was thinking about the bodily sensations, especially as as kind of fitting into this water metaphor. And what I noticed is that, as happens a lot when I slow down and really begin to pay attention to the bodily sensations, they can feel quite like a flood, just because there's so much there that I'm generally, not aware of or less aware of because I'm more in my mind. But as I slow down, I start to realize, like, oh, there's tightness here and buzzing there. And, I think especially if you deal with things like anxiety or chronic pain or anything that can have these strong relations to the body, these sensations can really feel quite flooding and overwhelming a little bit. And Yeah, it varies from day to day in my practice, but I feel like I'm really trying to get more comfortable just sitting with that, and being able to, yeah, again, to go with the metaphor, to look at it more in terms of drops rather than just this overwhelming kind of flood. So yeah, thank you.
Maybe I'll just add that can be so powerful. What you described, Matthew, is kind of like reframing instead of a flood or a stream or just drops. And I don't know, just maybe that's just a sign of how powerful the mind is. And we can use this as an ally to do just as you said, to reframe things.
Yeah, and I'll add that just a note of appreciation is that there is a lot going on in the body when we open to it, especially if we've had a habit of not being so connected to our body, maybe for a long time, even decades for some people. When we open to it, it's like, oh, wow, there's this energies, there's pain, there's tightness, and it can feel like a lot. Um, but the alternative of trying to turn away and stuff that back in the box and not be in the body doesn't work after a while in practice. And piece by piece, drop by drop, we can start to feel that. And that is actually very onward leading for the path of being able to then handle our mind, our emotions, our thoughts, other things. The body is such a key vehicle for that. So I just want to encourage you to continue in that, Matthew. Thank you. And Alan, hi.
Hi. Nice to be with you all. It's great to have this in the middle of the week, so I really appreciate it. And what works with me a lot with water is the far horizon sight of the ocean, where you're up looking at the way out there where it looks calm, or in a pond or a lake. And that's been really very helpful to me. I just wanted to add that in. I don't know if there's suttas or similes on that particular point of view, but it works for me. Grateful.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, that can be helpful, like what we visually are seeing or what we're actually imagining. Yeah. Would anybody like to share? Like, maybe or during the meditation, did it feel more like a flood or a stream or just something else entirely? Did it feel like a boiling water or I don't know.
Oh, there's Kara has her hand up.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
Hi, yes, good to see you both again. Not entirely on the specifics of what you talked about today, but still related to water. On retreat, one of you read a poem titled Love Like Water, and I wanted to check, we were trying to find it. Is that a Rosemary Trommer poem as well?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. It's hard to find online, but do you happen to know what book it's from by chance?
I think it's only published online, actually.
Oh, really? Well, search harder then. Thank you.
Thanks for the comment in the chat, Isra. Very nice.
And she found a steady anchor, right? We could even use anchor as part of the water simile too. We could, if we stretch it, we could include everything in there. Victoria.
Thank you very much for this meditation. And as was mentioned, I think by Alan, it's really a wonderful resting place in the middle of a hectic week. I grew up on the ocean, and I'm still living not too far from the ocean. And water is definitely my favorite element. Having grown up on the ocean, that's my lullaby and my refuge and everything you can imagine. And I've been taught not to use the word but to use the word and. And I have had experiences of nearly drowning in big waves. And when I started on this path, the spiritual path, I started to reflect on water as like doing the meditation on the four elements and things like that. Finding the balance between, like not resisting, learning to literally go with the flow. But at the same time, having a sense of, the sort of the skillful side of it, if you know what I mean, that water can be very treacherous. And so I'd love some commentary from both or either of you on that, just finding kind of that sweet spot, because I feel like I tend to go from one extreme to another. Like there's nothing like floating on the ocean when it's calm and just lying on your back and hearing the sounds underwater and just looking up at the sky. But then suddenly a huge wave can come, and then knowing how to negotiate that. So anyway, I'm talking too much. I'd rather listen to you, which is why I raised my hand. Thank you.
Want to say something here, Kim?
I think you've perfectly articulated the balance of that passage we read about not pushing forward and not standing still, in a sense, is there is a middle way with water where we recognize that it can be dangerous or treacherous if we interact with it. Our relationship with it is not skillful. We're pushing too hard, or we haven't angled ourselves right in the wave, something like that, fighting against it in some way. And then, but also, if you're floating, you do have to float. You can't just sink in the water, right? So having an active relationship with the water is like having an active relationship with our life. We don't push and try to make everything happen the way we want it to, but we also don't just kind of passively let everything happen to us. It's an engagement that's skillful. That's what comes to mind first. I'll see what Diana might want to add.
I'll just add, maybe as I had offered during the guided meditation, that it actually just each moment of mindfulness is a way we build the raft. And if we understand the raft as a way that can support us, no matter whether the water has a lot of energy or whether it's really calm, and whether that raft is in the shape of a rubber ducky or something, a kayak with an oar, or whatever it is, each moment of mindfulness is, I would say, is a raft, actually, each moment. So it's just moment after moment.
Thank you. Thank you both. That was really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria.